Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my friend Jenny. Jenny, tell the internet about yourself.
Hi, I'm MagicCatJenny on YouTube and pretty much everywhere else on the internet. And my YouTube channel is about booktube and more. Many more things.
Yeah, we're very similar in that we do just all of the things. Whatever we feel like doing on the YouTube is what we do on the YouTube. So we're here today to talk about The Handmaid's Tale. We've both read this kind of recently, and we did so intentionally so we could do a collaboration. Which means over on Jenny's channel we have talked about Slaughterhouse-Five. So go check out that video, links will be down in the doobly-doo. We also decided that we're going to give ourselves a limited amount of time to talk about the book. Just so this isn't a gajillion years long as a video, because that could happen.
Okay.
So I'm starting the 20-minute timer now, and it will annoy us in 20 minutes.
All right.
Okay, so background, in case you're one of like 3 people on BookTube that have never heard about this book. Handmaid's Tale is from 1985, written by Margaret Atwood, who is Canadian, and it's a dystopian novel, and it was recently made into a TV show, which I have not seen yet, but heard is very, very good. You're over here.
I have seen the show.
Oh, good.
And actually...
does it transfer well?
Yes. I actually watched the show as it was being released on Hulu, so I'd watch it every week. And I watched it before I read the book, which normally I don't like doing because that tends to make me less interested in the book when I'm reading it because I already know everything that's going on. But actually, the book is really, really good, and it matches up really well. Like, it's a very, very close adaptation. There are some major differences, but if you like the book, you won't be disappointed with the show at all.
So I'm assuming like the major differences were definitely like the intentional differences, just because we're in a different medium, as opposed to like we're just completely ignoring the plot of the book.
Yeah. There were a few little things that were different, like some characters were a little bit different, but nothing that would make you, oh, why did they change that? Like the major difference is just the time in which it takes place. They made it take place in like this year, which actually made it even more frightening, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like there has been quite a bit of discussion about this book and what's currently happening in, say, America. So, yeah, that was probably a very intentional update to timeline.
Yeah, I recommend both, but they're intense.
Good to know. I will try to track down the Hulu show at some point, because it seems like something I would watch. I'll put it on my very long list. So, yeah, set in this dystopian world where basically infertility is a big issue, and there are people who work as handmaidens, who are basically the reproducers of the society. So if there is a couple that they can't have babies, and they never blame it on the man. I noticed this. They're like, it's never the man's fault if she can't get pregnant. It's clearly the wife's fault. So we'll get this handmaiden, and if the man still can't reproduce with her, it's still her fault that there's no child.
So,
which
is this world, the way I read it was almost as if this was something that was happening on like a large scale in the world where like infertility was becoming a bigger and bigger issue. So the reasons the handmaids were chosen is because they were still able, or they had children recently, or maybe they ran some tests. I'm not sure exactly, but it felt like...
Yeah, they had some history of having a child. So like our main character, I remember, had a child and was like separated from her child and her husband, or common law, or whatever he was, I can't remember, and was put to work as somebody to continue the population, but specifically for these like upper class of people.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think what if this sort of, worldwide problem, or however big it is, isn't just the women, it's the men too. So there's nothing about like, oh, let's find the fertile men and have them be, that's a really interesting and I think very purposeful decision, is that there's not like also men who impregnate the women. Like, that could help solve this problem, or that could, but nope, it's just the women.
Yeah, and it was also just such a weird thing where there were a bunch of people like, hey, I will have sex with you, main character, just in case the guy you're working for is shooting blanks. You gotta make sure you get pregnant, he'll never know it's not his. And it's just like, such a weird way to go about reproduction.
Yeah. There was a scene in the book, I think she's going to go shopping, and she walks past one of the guards, and she almost like purposefully like sways her hips because she knows that they don't, like, these young men don't have girlfriends, they don't see women that often, and she knows like the effect she's having, the way that sexuality is sort of almost taken away from the society entirely, except for, you know, of course, in these sort of, I guess, illegal clubs where it's like, that is the point. But even, you know, I mean, at that time it was written about modern time, and the show is modern time for us. Like, how quickly, like, it seemed as if it went really quickly in the world of the book. Like, they just burned all the fashion magazines, and like everything's it's just gone. That's so scary to think that like your entire culture could just be like snuffed out, because it's entirely possible. It's just so scary.
Yeah, it's so strange too, because my biggest reference for this book, before I read it, was just after the US election. I went to see a vaudeville show with a troupe that I usually perform with, but I was too busy, so I was just watching the show. And they did a whole take on it, and they were just like, Margaret Atwood is a goddamn Nostradamus. And then they basically did like a very quick rendition of what happened in the book, but like just to eerie music. And I was like, yep, yeah, it's scary how much I could see this type of stuff happening if things kept going down the rabbit hole. So that, I think that is the scariest thing about it. What do they call it? They call it the tradition or the ceremony. They're like once a month sanctioned shag fest.
Yeah, ceremony.
It seemed like the least sexy thing of all time, because you have the wife holding on to the woman, the handmaid, who's, I'm pretty sure, mostly still clothed, except for, like, underpants, and then, like, the husband doing his bit for fertility. Weirdest.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, and it's so... I appreciated that this was a society that was, like, rape is not cool. It was just as invasive, because it's not like she had a choice to not be a handmaid.
Yeah, the line of is this rape, is it not, is very blurred. Watching the show, and I do think it's a really great show and really great book, but some of those scenes were very difficult to watch, just because of how real and how great the actors were, and all the they filmed everything very, very tight close-ups on people's faces, and it's just, those scenes were like my least favorite. They're done well, but they were my least favorite to watch, because it's...
Yeah, I imagine they would be incredibly uncomfortable to watch. Because it's such a weird world, because it's like, oh, we've gotten rid of rape, but...
No, you haven't. Not really.
Actually, no. Like, any situation where you have to do this or else we're just gonna kill you is rape.
Yeah. One thing about the book that I thought was really interesting, because it wasn't in the show, so it was a bit of a surprise for me reading, was the sort of epilogue that takes place in... like years and years and years in the future, and like the whole story was found on these audio tapes of Offred.
Yeah, which is an interesting take.
Yeah, that does not happen in the show, and that was interesting, because a lot of the people who are talking about her tapes, like questioning whether or not she was lying or how true some of it were, and a lot of the men characters in that epilogue being like, oh, I don't know. It was just, even that part was so frustrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
because it's like, well, if somebody took the time to tell this story in a way to try to get it out to the masses, shouldn't you just believe them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yes. I was also frustrated with that. And it was also just kind of a weird way, like, weird in a good way, like a good way to end it, but also just like you didn't really know what happened, because it has that kind of abrupt, she just stopped recording tapes ending. You don't know if she succeeded in getting away or if she was killed. Like, you just don't know.
Definitely. And that might change, because there is going to be a second season.
Okay.
Yeah, but Margaret Atwood is very involved in the production and very involved in writing the next season. So
yeah, and it's interesting that like taking something that is just like one text and then putting it into like a TV format and then deciding that there's going to be another season on top of it, even though there's not more written work to go from, is really interesting to me. The other like book to TV show adaptation that's done that recently is 13 Reasons Why. They're going to be continuing that one as a second season, and like there's nothing after that point book wise. So like I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Is it going to be a lot more of just dealing with the fallout of that situation? Is it dealing with that and actually getting justice for it, or is it just going to be incredibly frustrating? Like, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with the second season of this. It's good that the original author is involved, because then you have some form of integrity, although books belong to their readers, so there's that whole thing. But I feel more comfortable with Margaret Atwood being a part of writing the second book, as it were, into a second season of the show.
Yeah, I think definitely, and this might be a topic for another video, but books and their TV or film adaptations and how that can change how you read a book or how you watch a show based on which one you've experienced first. Normally I find it frustrating if I do the two too close to each other. I couldn't get into the Game of Thrones books at all because I had seen the show, and I tried reading the first book, and I couldn't get into it because it moves so much slower than the show.
It's interesting because I watched, I think, the first season, and then I read all of the books. And that actually helped me, because while I was watching the TV show, I would have to stop it every once in a while and be like, okay, which guy with a beard is this? Because there were a lot of characters, and a lot of them look similar. But then I had those actors in my head while I was trying to read the book, and it was so much easier. So, like, I would read the books, and I would see those actors as those characters. So it's interesting that we have two different takes on that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Another experience with that, I obviously read Harry Potter books before seeing the films, because they came out before, but obviously, but I remember I reread all of the books before the final film, and when I watched the final film, I found myself frustrated and angry at it more than I've been angry at any of the other films, and certainly some of those aren't as close to the books as like the last ones are, but I just was I was very intensely critical because I had just finished reading the last book. Yeah,
I have a best friend who's a huge Potter fan, and she can't do it too close or else she gets very mad. Okay, so I didn't actually read the Harry Potter books until 2013. But my best friend is a huge Harry Potter fan, so I had seen the first two movies, and then she complained so hard about them, I think they switched directors for the third movie, that I just didn't see the rest of the movies because she complained about such a little change that I wouldn't have noticed because I didn't read the books.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's just weird that I just never got around to it. I mean, I've read and seen all of it since then, but it was such an intensely popular thing, and when something is super intensely popular, I don't want to read it right away. I'm just weird like that. My little brother loved it. It got him into reading, but like I was already a hardcore reader, so I didn't need that like push into this makes kids read. I'm like, I was reading before it was cool and fun. Like, I was that kid. So
I didn't get super into those books right when they were popular. I mean, when the first books came out and the sort of Harry Potter mania started happening, I wasn't like super into it at that time either. I read the books and enjoyed them, but I wasn't like in the fandom till probably like college, when like I guess it was getting pretty, the movies kept coming out and all of that. But yeah, it's interesting. The third movie has a different director, but I actually think it's better.
I think they also might have switched locations for like the Grand Hall or something. Something like I probably wouldn't even notice really bothered her, so I just never ended up seeing the film for like years because she complained about it so much. Like I was like, I don't really care. I see the draw. This is really good storytelling, blah blah blah. But like there are so many things to read. So in some ways, it made it feel like this happened like immediately. You did kind of see a lead up to this happening in her flashback scenes with her happy family. You did see like things shutting down, and then suddenly her not having access to her bank account. Like that was very close to like her being captured and forced into this lifestyle, but you kind of saw it happening bit by bit, and it's so interesting to see that again with the current political landscape, and it's just terrifying.
Yeah. Actually, I borrowed this book from my sister-in-law because at my library it was like checked out with like over 100 people on the waiting list. So,
yes.
So I borrowed it from her, and I just wanted to show you. It's really cute. Little post-it. I don't know if you can see. It's this little llama post-it note that just says "Question Authority."
Nice. That is really cute.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yeah. Yeah, she actually read it in school. Question discussions. I was thinking of using this for our video, but they're very specific, and there's a lot of them.
Oh yeah, just like the things that you would make a high schooler write an essay about.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
yeah.
BookTube just wants to talk about things in general, maybe go into specifics, but not like write a 5-paragraph essay on things.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, is interesting considering I read it right after seeing the show.
I felt it was weird in this book how many different types of class of women there were, and they were classed under like legitimate women, illegitimate women, and then like how they were basically making women police themselves. So they, I guess that was our 20 minutes. I'm gonna finish that thought anyway. How they were basically making women police themselves by having these different class structures within being a woman. So like, you had the wives, you had the daughters, you had the handmaids. But if you were a person who just wanted to have sex, you were a Jezebel, and you were an underclass type of person. It was just so weird, and it's a lot of what like girl on girl hate is now currently, is just basically policing each other.
Yeah, no, it felt as if it was almost sort of like the way some people might think of women and judge them, but making it very much like a part of the society. So almost like justifying those judgments and saying that they're okay because this is the way things are, and not like, ugh, don't like that.
We're just following the rules by telling you can't do what you want to do, and it's like, think about where these rules came from.
One of those categories wasn't in the show, which I noticed reading the book, and that was the category of women that were of a lesser like class status, and they had to do like all the different jobs, so they had multicolored outfits.
Yeah, I think they were called econo-wives.
Yeah, econo-wives. Ugh.
Women who are married, relatively low-ranking men, but not part of the elite. So if you have read the book, or if you've seen the TV show, let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you haven't already, you should go over to Jenny's channel and subscribe and watch her video that we did together as well on Slaughterhouse 5, and just all of her videos, because this is how we became friends. I just kept watching her videos, so yay. Yeah. I mean, look at that face. How could you not subscribe to that face? If you'd like this type of collaboration video, please let me know, because if you guys are digging it, I definitely enjoy doing this with Jenny, so we could do this in the future if it's something that other people and not just us enjoy. So yeah, let us know down below.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, exactly, basically. So yeah, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe at will, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.